As we get into this time of the year in the colder months, vertical jigging becomes a lot better technique for catching crappie, and actually it's a good technique for catching bass during the winter time also. And here's some few tips that I do thinking about vertical jigging. A lot of times I'll simply get around something like a tree like this right here, and with our live scope a lot of times we can see the fish in the tree real easy. Sometimes they're sucked up to the side of it and we can't see them, but I'll get in here and I'll just simply let that bait go all the way down to the bottom like I'm doing right here. It's a long way down there. I'm in 29, 30 feet of water. I probably don't need to let it go that deep, you know, to catch fish, but I want to let it down there, just let it go all the way down to the bottom. Once I get down to the bottom, got it on the bottom right now, I'm going to just pick my jig up a little bit. I've got it just a little bit off the bottom, not far at all. I don't really have my scope pointed over at it. I'm going to get my ride height turret and turn it around to this tree that I'm in. Kind of look at that tree right there. Pretty calm out here. I'm holding the tree. Now I'm all the way down on the bottom there. So I'm all the way down on the bottom. And all I'm going to do is just take that bait and leave it down there for just a little bit, not very long. I'm going to move it around. You see all I'm doing with my rod tip? I'm just moving it just slowly, letting that little, I've got a Lucky Strike Crappie Magic on here with a little Lucky Minnow on it, soft plastic. And I'm going to wind a couple cranks and bring it up a little bit. I'm going to do the exact same thing. Just kind of move it around just a little bit. The key is depth. You want to get the right depth. Now, you notice I haven't moved that rod tip. Now, I'm going to move the rod tip. But in moving the rod tip, I don't do what a lot of people do and, you know, jerk on it like that. You see the rod tip moving like that. I don't do that. What I do to put action on that jig down there is actually dip the rod tip down. You see that right there? Dipping the rod tip down. I'll show you with the bait up on top of the water what that looks like here in a minute. See, I dip down, dip down, dip down, as opposed to jerking it up. It makes a big difference in what that jig's doing. Now, you'll catch fish, you can get a bite by jerking it up like that or jiggling like that. I'm jiggling up there. But I want to take that bait and I'll just go down, 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 down. Move it a little bit. Down, down, down. This is what you want to do vertical jigging. Stop and just simply move your rod around a little bit. Now, that thing is just swimming around in a couple of foot area right there is all it's doing. Barely moving. A little Crappie Magic jig with that little Lucky Minnow on it. It's got plenty of action. Doesn't have to do too much. Maybe hit it with a downstroke every now and then. Raise it up a little bit till you work it all the way back up to the top. Now I'm going to move this over here and just let you look at it a little bit and show you what I'm talking about. You see right here, you're moving that bait around. It's got plenty of action down there, just barely moving it. Now watch what happens. This is what happens when I jerk up. You see this right there? Kind of makes a little spin around. Here's what happens when you move your rod tip down. Now here's another thing that I do. I take my hand a lot and just hit the rod tip right up in here, jiggling that rod. Now look at that right there. It's not spinning, it's not coming up, it's just got a lot of action. Just hitting the rod tip. Just hit your rod tip every now and then. So you don't need to jerk your rod up or jerk it down, either one. Move over to another side of the tree. Vertical jig right straight down. I saw a couple fish in this tree. Down about 15 feet. You hit your rod tip, you're putting a lot of action right there on it. Not your rod tip, but the base of your rod right in front of your reel. Hit that a little bit, move it. Move your rod tip around. And that's all you need to do is vertical jigging. Basically, it's a matter of getting the bait right in front of the fish. Sometimes, of course, if you're live scoping where you're dropping your bait right down in front of them, you'll keep it, you can put it right on their nose. Put it right on their nose. And simply just move your rod tip around a little bit. Just move it around a little bit. Not much, just a little bit. Hit your rod tip with your other hand. Put a little action on it. Now, when you are picking that bait up, you don't need to move it but about a quarter of a turn. A quarter of a turn with a spinning reel picks up a lot of line. That's all you're doing, vertical jigging. Very easy way to catch the fish. Once you get them turned on, And the other thing about vertical jigging is you can get in some pretty heavy cover. And if you get hung up, it's a lot easier to get your bait undone, and you're not going to get hung up nearly as much either. That's the other part of the deal. You don't get hung up nearly as much if you're vertically jigging as you do casting. Once you determine how deep those fish are, then you just want to go down to their depth. You don't want to go below them every single time and work your way back up. That's just a way to find fish. Once you have them found, you want to go down to that depth and stay at that depth. Keep your bait around them as much as you possibly can. When you pick up line, you can only move like a half a turn at the most, picks up quite a bit of line on the spinning reel. Of course, if you've got a live scope, you can drop right down to those fish, get right at their depth, get right above them, keep your bait right above them, put it right on their nose. Just leave it there till they bite. Move it, just barely move it. Doesn't take much at all. Not a whole lot of action you need to put on a crappie jig to make fish bite it. The key is getting it to the right depth. Vertically jigging in the wintertime, I promise you, what a great way to catch crappie. Go out there and whack them, fillet them, catch, clean, and cook. And remember, I sure do.